Hello, how's it going, friends? Gravehammer here. This is the last part of the tutorial series on how to paint the grimdark Sylvaneth. The two other parts can be found on my channel. We start off again by priming the miniature black and work on a reverse zenithal layer with Tindalos Red from scale 75. Any warm brownish red will do, I just really like scale paints. I did this with airbrush, but you can dry brush and stipple for the same effect, that doesn't really matter. Once we have the reverse zenithal down, we spray light grey zenithal on the model. I used Miskatonic grey from scale 75, one of my absolute favorite paints. Any light grey will do the job, so don't worry about it. Again, stippling and dry brushing will work great on the dryads, so you don't have to use an airbrush for this part. I added some moss texture to the dryad off camera before priming. To learn how to do this, check out my swamp based tutorial where I explain how to get great looking moss details. We now have two very basic coats of color added to the miniature, and we go to town with AK Interactive Dark Brown Wash. This is an enamel wash, so you will need white spirits or odorless turpentine to tidy up the miniature. I am applying the wash straight from the bottle with old beat up hobby brush, keeping emphasis on the brighter areas of the miniature. I am quickly doing a wash over the base, using Abteilung 502 black diluted to a wash consistency. If you are not familiar with oil paints, you can use null oil diluted with acrylic medium. Add couple quick passes with Shrieking Grime for duck vehicles. This is optional but makes the base look a lot better, adding some pale greyish green variants. Works exceptionally well with grey and red tones. We want to clean up the miniature after the enamel washes, so we come back with a Q-tip and white spirits. For my hobby purposes I use an odorless turpentine that can be found in any art and hobby store that sells oil paints, as this is commonly used to thin down the oil paints for painting. Dab the miniature with the Q-tip to reactivate the enamel we applied earlier, and work in careful dabbing motion to remove the excess. Work the miniature with this technique until you feel satisfied with the result. You can use a small brush loaded with white spirits to work some of the harder to reach areas. This is my favorite part of the process. To apply the moss colors, just really enjoy the cyclic green color. We start by using Slimy dark grime over the moss tufts and texture. Use a small brush for this, as you want to add the effect drop by drop, not overdoing it. I also add some of the slime grime over the loincloth and the leaves on the branches. Next up, we are using a brush to remove some of the applied enamel. This is just to make the slime grime to better sit on the crevices and allows room for our next layer. For this part, we dab some moss deposits from AK to bring nice vibrant green over the moss texture. The nice thing about working with enamels is that you can easily control where and how much you want them by adding more paint or removing them with white spirits. Just wipe the brush on a piece of paper or tissue and you can better control the amount applied on the miniature. The enamel washes leave the miniature looking rather weathered, like an old tree trunk in the middle of some dark swamp or deep forest, just like we wanted. We want to emphasize the pale areas of the miniature with adding some highlight layer. We want to have the parts we used zenithal layer to become a bit more alive, as this is a living creature after all. I mixed up some Miskatonic grey with Nuln oil, a 2-to-1 mixture, so it's nice and flowing, kind of like a glaze. This is a technique I really like to use glazing the miniatures, as it complements the underlying layer with only slightly more pigmented highlight. Once the glaze dries up, it leaves a very transparent layer that allows far smoother blend between the shadow and light. Work the miniature carefully, but don't think too much about it, as we want to keep it simple and rather quick. I wanted to add a slight amount of streaking grime for DAK on the loincloth and some of the branches on the back. This will bring a bit more color and weathered look for the back side of the miniature, but is again completely optional. With the miniature nearing completion, we worked the witchwood runes and markings. For the first pass, I used Arphen Jade from scale 75 diluted to a glaze and worked the runes. I wanted the jade color to work as a slight glow underneath, so I applied the glaze quite roughly over the runes. We tidy up the work with defined stipples later on. If you want, you can do a more precise pin wash for the runes, it will look great either way. Here we are working a bit more precise stippling with Surfer Orc Flesh, yet again from scale 75, to add defined spots of glow on the runes. Stipple carefully over the rune markings and on the eyes. Last, we add some pure white to the Surfer Orc flesh, more of a 2-to-1 mix. Stipple a very small amount to emphasize the glow effect. You can keep a Q-tip around and dab lightly if you feel like you missed any part of the process, as this will pick up most of the color up and you can try again. Don't worry too much about making it as pristine and crisp as possible, as on the tabletop it will look great nonetheless. For centerpiece models like Cornet Hunters, Tree Lord Ancient, Spirit of Turtu, etc., you can work the details much more. And a quick stipple with pure white will finish the effect and emphasize the glow. After the miniature itself is done, you can put on some water effects on the base, as described in my swamp base tutorial. I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial as much as I enjoyed making it. Consider subscribing to my channel, hit that like button and go check out my other pages for more stuff. You can see what I'm working on at Instagram, crave.hammer, and on Facebook, Cravehammer Miniatures. And with this miniature, our basic level tutorials on Sylvaneth are done. Catch you on the next one, happy wargaming and have fun hobbying. Oh, and you better stay grim and dark.